In the mix.
Come on.
All the way to the top.
That I house Dylan's Burgers.
What the hell?
Cheers. Who said that?
I'm joking.
Yo, this is Ice Cream Miles coming at you with all the hits on Anna K's Mini Mix.
Ice Cream Miles.
Coming at you with the soft serve.
Welcome back to Backroomconvos. I'm your host at the most Lesego M video report, aka Shoot Your Shot, and maybe you might get a chance to call me Daddy like I rulers. And if you're a fan of sports, stay tuned because you might like what we're cooking on today's episode. First and foremost, I'd really like to apologize for people who were waiting for responses regarding the episode that we had. The two episodes that we had day before yesterday, so we didn't issue those out, and hopefully within this episode that we're having, which is like this 77th episode if I'm not mistaken, so we'll try to go through some of the questions that you had and try and tackle as much as we can in this one episode. But as I said, there's just a lot of content that has to be covered in this episode, and if we are not able to cover those questions, we'll try and later on the podcast, you're releasing two of two in the same day, the 2 of 2, the episode that is coming on the evening, we'll try and tackle the questions that you have in that episode should we not be able to cover some of those questions within this episode. So to start with, I think a lot of you have been on social media, a lot has been happening, and a lot of people have been saying something about the guy who escaped in, what's the name? Ecuador, is it Ecuador? Ecuador, yeah, it's Ecuador. The guy who escaped and the chaos that really blew out in Ecuador. So a lot of people have been, taking even Daniel's page and saying that we must cover that. And I want us to really speak about it. I really want us to speak about it, but I think that will be a topic that we'll cover on later on today. It's very sad what's happening, but yeah, as I said, so we'll just talk about that later on the podcast, which is the later on segment that we'll be releasing guys' feeds. So we'll talk about that at that. But now I'd really like to talk about Bernice King, who is the daughter of Martin Luther King and Coretta King. So we covered an episode, right? We covered an episode, I think it's 75, if I'm not mistaken, 75, 76, where we covered the story of Jonathan Majors and Megan Good. We were talking about the first interview after the conviction that he was found guilty because of the previous relationship with the ex-girlfriend that he had of assault, right? So that really happened, right? So an interview, obviously after the evidence, what I don't get is that there was a lot of evidence that was presented to the court, by Jonathan Major's team, and a lot, I think even Coretta, if I'm not mistaken, not Coretta, the woman, I don't know her name, the ex-girlfriend of Jonathan Majors, I don't remember her name, I don't recall her name, but as soon as I do, I'll let you know in the comment section the name when I get it, or if you do know the name of the lady, please do comment it on the comment section, and I'll make sure to rectify it later on the episode. So that lady also presented evidence to the court, and finally they found him guilty. And surprisingly, I was like, why is everybody, I think everybody doesn't like that guy, as far as, I don't know if he was acting, but he's an actor, he's good at it. So a lot of people, from what I saw on social media, they were saying, that guy is a good actor, he played great, he played, a lot of characters, and he killed it. Even in that interview, that might have been an act of some sort, So, and I was like, but the interview that he had, he seemed genuine, he seemed genuine. And as confused as I was to say, this was a relationship that they had, and presented the evidence that they did, which I felt like it was a solid evidence, because they did see, in the night of the abuse and when that was reported, and the evidence where the girl went out to party after that. And I was like, well, how does this even happen? You get what I mean? So I think the important question to ask is that, what did they find or what did they see, the patterns they use. Because I think at the end of the day, as much as I might have speculations about this, but I'm not an expert in justice or law in any level. So I think we need to like speak to someone who's really into law and will bring in a different perspective to that of the general public, because we see what we saw what we saw in the footages that were leaked, and we just took a stance based on what we saw, and the verdict came out different, and I was a bit surprised. But a lot of people in the internet are not fooled, or they think that was an act, blah blah blah. And do let me know what you think on the comment section. Do you think that guy was genuine at that interview that he had, or do you think that was a part of an act that he had to pull on to get numbers or be hired again in Hollywood? Because he did mention on the interview that he dreamed, like he still feel that he gets a job in Hollywood even after what happened. I think, man, as much as if that was guilty, and I feel like he's a good of an actor and he shouldn't give up, and it's gonna take a lot after this for him to get to a place where he's being casted by a lot of directors or being casted by Hollywood in general. So do let me know what you think on the comment section. So speaking about that, there was a time where the recording with she was arguing with the girlfriend, and she was telling her, this is where I see myself, basically the vision. This is how I want to be perceived in the world. This is what I want to achieve in the world. And you as my lady, I feel like you're not filling your part to make sure, like, as far as like filling your part is concerned, I think what he meant, it was like, I need you to be my Coretta. I need you to be my Michelle Obama. So those are like the direct words used in that VN, in that voice note or voice recording. So it trended, obviously. It did trend on social media, and people, because of that, people were like, oh, okay, he's quoting this, and obviously he has a lot of people who don't like him on social media. I get that, and they were using that against him. And I think, when was it? 5 hours ago, yesterday, which was like in the morning, Bernice King, which is the daughter of Martin Luther King, and Bernice King, which is the wife of Martin Luther King, because that was trending so much, she decided to come up and said, I quote, this is from her: "My mother was not a prop. She was a peace advocate before she met my father, and was an instrument in him making out against the Vietnam War. Based on understanding, my mother was a force. Based on understanding, my mother was a force. Here's what I wrote about her a few years ago." Coretta King, so like Coretta Scott King. So that's her mother, but the mother of Bernice King, speaking about her mother, Coretta Scott King. So she did give us a link to a blog. I don't know if it's a blog. It's a blog post. So she did write about that, and she just redirected people who want to read more about what she said about her mom not being a prop, and and I think the intention behind that, I can come in from an angle of Jonathan Majors to say, I don't think that was an angle to say my mom was a prop. He was acknowledging the fact that the same thing that he's saying with the mom was a force in all these great things. He's just saying that, he's just saying, I want you to be the same force that Bernice King has just confirmed that their mother was. You know what I mean? So I think that must have been blown out of proportion based on what's been trending on the internet. So I think from what we see on the internet, and the people who are hating on Jonathan Majors have just given out a narrative that's not true. They have their own agendas, and the narrative that was being pushed, it was not that. I think that Jonathan was going for something pretty different, but it was blown out of proportion, and people started driving a wrong narrative. I think that's what, from what I read, Coretta King is saying. From what I read, from what Coretta King is, Bernice, I'm so sorry. What Bernice King is saying here is based on the narrative that was being driven by the people who are not in support of Jonathan Majors. So I think if he was to listen or watch the interviews and really go to the root cause of this entire trend, she'll actually understand the intention was never to be on her wrong side or be against the mom, or like, not even you say her mom was a prop, clearly she got, because I also like, when I saw this, she wasn't a prop, and I was like, wait, she really got like the wrong side of the coin, But tell me what you think on the comment section. I'm your host at the most, Lesego M, Daily Report, aka Shoot Your Shot, and maybe you might get a chance to call me Daddy like Cairo. So I'd like us to move on, right? We did speak a lot about Jonathan Majors for the past few episodes, right? So again, there was something trending on the internet, and shout out to Zay too, because she covered the story first. I saw this story first from her, and I tried to get a glimpse of the feel of like the mega church leader who is TB Joshua. And a lot of people have been talking about TB Joshua on the internet, and I think there was a documentary that was released, a series type documentary that was being released on the internet about TB Joshua, who's known as a mega church leader, a worshipper. A lot of people go to Nigeria from Africa to that side, and I've seen a lot of comments about TB Joshua, a lot of like negative even, and there's one person that I'm chatting to on WhatsApp that I have, I've seen a post, but I don't think whatever is being posted about TB Joshua is actually true. And knowing the hypocrisy behind BBC, and I'm like, well, it's hard to tell what is true, what is not true, right? So I'm like, well, let's hear the other side of this. I'm like open to it to say, okay, if there's people who are still saying TB Joshua is the one and chosen, leader, and there's this side of the BBC News who, they've released a doc. I think one of the people in BBC who released that, it's Helen Spooner. So for those of you who want to go check that out, go on and check that out, and do let me know what you think about that. So yeah, that came out, and I'm like, the surprising part, I'm sure a lot of you find it surprising, but I never knew about TB Joshua until the trend, right? I think the trend was yesterday. I still like, oh, what was I saying there? But I truly dug deep and read more about TB Joshua when I saw him trending, and I was like, oh, okay, there was this happening. Oh, where is he from? The wives, the first law of the church, what. That's when I got into detail and like actually learning about TB Joshua. And other than that, any other thing that he was doing, I was not aware of, and I wasn't even aware that people were flying from South Africa to Nigeria to get healing. And I think a specific comment that stood out for me was from a lady who was saying her mom was a big, follower of TB Joshua, and she saved up a lot of money, while working, with phase of retirement, and she used those funds to actually buy a plane ticket to go to Nigeria and do whatever they did there. And she did do that. I think she was sick, so she did there, like try to get healing or answers. And when that happened, she came back, and when she came back, she passed on straight after coming back from Nigeria. And I was like, oh, that's so sad, man. I don't know, but I think with one thing about the internet, a lot of people like to play, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's one of those things where like someone was like, I'm trolling the internet, whatever the case. But I do know, and if this really happened, and I just hope people see you find healing, and you don't hold anything against them. Some of these things you just need to leave to God and he'll work things out, So yeah, it's just surprising that I never knew of TB Joshua, and I was like, oh, even if I was to speak, I don't really have a huge part of, never heard of him, and everything that I'll be saying to you, it all will be from personal experience, like with me, because like I think all my life I've grown up in IPHC, and everything that I had to see, it was all about my charity and everything. Like I didn't even pay mind to anything that was going on outside of Saudi or my church, besides the fact that ZCC is one of the biggest churches, so you might know a couple of things, or like Zioni, or like those churches you might know, because those are like some of the churches that are big. You might know of Bushiri because he's big, you might know of this guy. Who's this guy called Mbo? Like those are some of the people I knew about. I just didn't know about TB Joshua. And on other news, man, I saw a post that was being made, and I think this was a premiere. Was it a premiere? No, it's not a premiere, but I think it's a shoot, an interview, a promo tour for the clearance, the Book of Clearance trailer that was coming out, and which featured some of the people like Jay-Z and Teyana Taylor in the movie. So Jay-Z on the directing side, he was a director in this movie, or producer. I think he was a producer, if I'm not mistaken. So I'll just double check and let you know. So yeah, Jay-Z was a producer in this movie, The Book of Clearance, for those of you who didn't know, So I was like, oh, this is interesting, because there was another movie that Jay-Z co-produced, and I was like, oh, okay, this is new money for him. He's looking into like exploring this, like film side and working with other producers and creating. He's a creative after all, and when I saw that he was one of the producers, I was like, this is actually dope. This is nice, For some of you, you might not know a lot of the names that are in these movies, and I think the one name that stood out that you might know, it's like Keith Stanfield, that you might know. He's the guy in the movie who is Clearance, so you might know him. Like Keith Stanfield, so you might know him. All these other guys, these are like the upcoming artists in this movie, so you wouldn't know of them. So Alfred Woodard is also someone you might know. Alfred Woodard is someone you might also know. So who else is here? Yeah, I think a lot of the other guys you wouldn't know of. These are like some of the new names within the industry. So I'm just interested to watching and seeing what they got to do, and most importantly, Jay-Z, the hand of him, and like, or hearing him speak in some of the upcoming interviews that they'll have, and talk about the movie, because I know even that the first movie that they released, he had to sit down with the co-producer and they chopped it up about the entire movie. Oh, so one other name you might know, it's David Oyelowo. Yeah, David Oyelowo. He's Nigerian. So there's a lot of Nigerian people in this movie. For those of you who didn't know, like there's a lot of Nigerian movies. So David Oyelowo was also a part of, was it Empire? Yes, I think Empire was playing a cop or something in there. So I think he's one of those names. You must check it out. So don't forget to follow, like, rate the show to get a notification for each and every time we release a new episode. So the movie is being released tomorrow for those of you who are interested in watching it. What? 2023? The movie is already out. I'm so sorry, guys. So yeah, I am thinking what's in the movie. Oh, so I'm sorry. The statement was released 2023. So the movie release date is tomorrow. Yes, it's tomorrow, January 2024, being released. So alongside, shout out to Kevin Hart as well. First action movie where he's, the star and he's kicking ass. So shout out to him for that as well. So sorry for profanity right there. So the budget of the movie, for those of you who are curious, the budget of the movie was 40 million. And I just hope Puguti they make 30%. So let's look at the ratings. In Rotten Potato, they ranked 76%, but the movie is not out. So this is based on the trailers. So and on Metacritic, they ranked 63 out of 100, which is above average. 6/10 in IMDb, so which is also above average. So shout out to Jay-Z and everybody who was a part of this project. Shout out to Teyana Taylor, and she's everywhere, by the way. And I know she also is one of the people on the internet who like has a lot going on as far as like family, Imani, the breakup, and the abusive relationship, or I don't know. But she also has like something huge drama going on in her life. It's the same applies with like Kiki. That's why I was comparing them. Yeah, between her and Kiki, and they're still like amazing actors, dancers, and singers in the respective, departments. They're still, creatives at the end of the day, and they're killing it, regardless of having, personal dramas in their lives, and they're still able to come at work and pull out the best performances. So shout out to them, man. Shout out to them. So yeah, without any wasting of time, I'd really like to go to an ad break. I'm your host with the most, Lesego M, aka Teacher Short, and maybe you might get a chance to call me Daddy like Carlo. Let's meet after the break. Cheers. Welcome back to Backroomconvo. I'm your host with the most, Lesego M, aka Teacher Short, and maybe you might get a chance to call me Daddy like Carlo. Listen, before we went on the break, we were talking about the movie Clearance, the book of Clearance. The trailer was being released, and shout out to people like Jay-Z who are part of the productions as an executive producer. So shout out to him. And I don't know if you guys might know some of the names in the cast as who are like a part of the casting crew, but Teyana Taylor is one of like the huge household names, and David Oyolo from Nigeria, he was a part of that as well. I think Elsie Woodard is also a part of that. For those of you who know her, she's pretty old in the industry, so I don't expect a lot of you to know her. So yeah, the movie is being released tomorrow, of course. Shout out to also Kevin Hart, who also has a movie that is coming out tomorrow. Alongside this movie, The Book of Clearance, it has something to do with belief. If you've watched a movie called The Cast of the Passion of the Christ, or the cast of the King of Kings, the cast of the Greatest Story of Eve, the cast of the Inquiry, like those are like spiritual movies where you learn about Jesus, the book, the Bible. If you are like interested in those type of movies, so this is one of those movies that's within that category. So the cast of The Passion of Christ was released in 2004. If you want to get a feel of what the movie that is being released tomorrow, you can watch that. And The King of Kings was released 1927, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 1927. The cast of the King of Kings, it was released 1927. So you can also binge that to get an idea of what the Book of Clearance is all about. So I'd like to move along right now. So the statement was delivered on social media about black coffee. So this, I'll read it and I'll just give you my perspective on it and everything that's happening. So black coffee was involved in a severe travel accident on a flight to England of his scheduled show in Argentina. I don't know the name. I don't know how to pronounce the name, but I know the place is in Argentina. The incident resulted in unforeseen complication and left him with some injuries. We can confirm that this is receiving the best possible medical attention and surrounded by supportive family and team. In respect of his privacy, we kindly request you understand and be patient. I'll just read this again. I didn't hear what I was saying for a minute. I'll just read it again. So yeah, it says black coffee was in a severe travel accident on a flight en route to his scheduled show in Argentina. I don't know how to pronounce the name, so I won't butcher it. So the incident resulted in an unforeseen complication and left him with severe injuries. We can confirm that he is receiving the best possible medical attention and is surrounded by a supportive family and team. In respect of his privacy, we kindly respect understanding and patience from the media and his fans. Despite the challenges presented, Black Coffee is optimistic and recovering well. He's looking forward to being back with you very soon. So I think the only thing I can say at this point is we wish him all the best and all the healing in the world, man. He's been doing a lot of things, great things in the world. Even though, I think in the past couple of days, a lot of people on the internet have been, trolling him for being, or being associated with Didi because, you know, that Take Me to Shopping, 50 Cent scandal, him liking boys or whatever. So Black Coffee was also being associated with that, and that they were trolling him on the internet before this happened. So shout out to him. You know, it's all love from South Africa. We all know that. So speaking about someone who's also great and a part of like a huge, you know, historical part of our country, or may his soul rest in peace, Peter Magubane, who is a photographer and who was a photographer and an anti-apartheid activist, and was a personal photographer for President Nelson Mandela. He was born in 1932 in the 18th of January. So like, how many days do we have to the 18th? 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. We have 7 days, yo. Like, he passed on 17 days before his birthday. So I saw like a lot of people, like political figures, really came out in numbers to support, to show their respect for him, to his family, for his work that he's done over the years for the country, and being an activist, an anti-apartheid activist, and a photographer that, you know, took a lot of photos within like the apartheid regime, and he was a personal photographer to Nelson Mandela. And I was like, you know, these are some of the people I think, as a podcaster, I think about Uguti. Some of these people who are not spoken about, or a lot is being said about them, I think those are like some of the people that we need to pay attention to, or we need to speak to. Like, you know, I don't think Peter Magubane has been interviewed in a platform which, and the youth, like, you know, I think in a parallel, like we said, like a platform that's filled with youth, I'd put it in the parallel with McV, or like Podcasting Shield, or the platform like mine, right, where you have a lot of youth listening or watching the podcast, you know. So you don't have a lot of the interviews where like the youth of this country is interacting with him and asking questions that are relevant, you know. Because I, for one, I think there was a lot of questions that I had when it comes to, like, you know, Umadiba, Mandela, and people like Ntantalax are coming out saying stuff about Madiba, to say he was always in, which is also true, you know, but we are just receiving the one end of the coin, and like there's also a story behind that, and like I think not a lot of people are representing that story or are coming out to speak about it. And people like Peter Magubane are one of those people that were close to him, who would give a different perspective to who Madiba was, or speak to who Madiba is or was. You know, I think to have that, you know, there's those people who have like who are conspiracy theories, and then they say Madiba was not in Robben Island, he was somewhere in the white guy's place. You know, like the song there, the song, I think, to quote one song, the song, I don't know the name of the song specifically, but it's a struggle song. It's asimbonanga Madiba la abelele khona nala, you know, like that song says we didn't see Madiba where he was or where he was sleeping during that period, you know. So these were songs that were being sang by activists, people who were part of the struggle, or the apartheid, who were part of the apartheid regime. And to get a perspective from someone like him would have meant a lot to people who are more pragmatic, you know, people who look into stats, you know, facts and research, you know. Like, I think it would have made much sense too, because now we have a lot of people who are saying whatever they feel, whatever they think. But I think to have like people like him to just come out and speak, and, you know, I think now in this landscape, the youth, and like me, I'm part of the youth, I have that opportunity to say, like, these are some of the questions that we have, or like, this is what we and my friends have had in like the backroom, like the backroom conversation, you know, like these are some of those conversations that people have been having. At some point, I remember I've had this conversation with Border and like some of those friends, you know, my close friends growing up, and there was that conversation that was going on, and I was listening in, and I was like, oh, I never knew back then I'd have a platform where I'd get to voice my voice and speak, you know, voice myself and speak about such, you know. But now it hits me, well, like, now I have a platform where I have the opportunity to bring in those people and bring in a different perspective from the experience of what really happened, from someone who was in the field, and not someone who just, go with what they hear or the songs that came out, or, and I think for someone who is even quoting those songs, they can also give you an understanding as to how those songs came about and like how they're being blown out of proportion, or to give out a narrative that's so biased and that's not true about what truly happened. I think our own Selim Zimande, people like Zinzi Mandela, those people are like the people I wish now we could have had come to the platform to speak about it. And my mission as it is to also like whoever that's left behind and whatever questions that I have about anything, I'll try my utmost best to like reach out and get those people to speak, and interact with them, so we are informed and we are not as ignorant as like some of the older generation think we are. And I think we are on the internet. There is a portion of people that are ignorant on the internet, and you see a lot of that on the internet, then making noise. And the silent youth, or the ones that are pushing, are not so loud on the internet, and everything that's being concluded on, it's based on what they see on the internet, and it doesn't have the stats where like the youth who are in politics or the youth who are not on the internet, what are they doing? And it's just based on that thing or one perspective from the internet, and they conclude based on their duty, the youth of this country is very ignorant because of the content that's being released at the internet. So I think we need to like have a conversation and maybe try to integrate those people with wisdom, people with sides of what happened then, to give us wisdom and understanding of what happened in the past and how we got to a place where we are in now, to talk about people, to talk about brand manipulation, to understand relationships of certain people. And with that, we can also understand the connections, and we can also make connections from understanding the relationship of those people back then, to say, this is able to happen because A and B and C were related in this manner, and that's how this was possible. That connection is possible because of that, So I think that's an interesting concept to have, or like a different element to have podcasting, and like bring those audience or iconic people to tell their story. And I just think it's an opportunity now for me to actually like get them to come and speak about some of the legendary things, the sit downs that they have. Being raised in societal, Fentersdorp, like to speak about that with that Magubane, like I think those are like some of the things that I'd really like to hear from people like him. I know like the majority of the kids on the internet, it's on some of the content they favor, but the content that I want to release, it's for those kids who are for like learning or personal development, or who are in politics, those youths that you don't hear about or see in the internet. I think a portion of what I want to do is also to bring understanding, to bring, foresight, or to bring, that connection to that story in the past and how it's relevant to certain things or certain patterns that are happening today. And because of the deals that were had back then, or stricken back then, you know what I mean? So I think that is very important to talk about. And at some point, I think I'd have to like have a structure on how we bring those people in. And I think now, as I said, we just had a lot to talk about it. I couldn't like even get to half of what was planned for the day, but I intend to release the second part of the episode of today. This is like one episode of today, but later on I'll release the 2 of 2, which is like the last episode of today, and I'll get to some of the things that I couldn't talk about in this segment. So I appreciate everybody. Shout out to the people in the UAE who are listening to the podcast. Shout out to the people in Botswana. Shout out to the people in Zimbabwe, Mozambique, as part of those. Shout out to South Africa as well. So I appreciate those people. And shout out to the people in the States as well. Those are some of the people that are showing us support worldwide. So I do appreciate you guys for everything, for your support, for the love, and sharing the podcast with everything. And one thing that I see would see, like, I'm gradually growing, or the podcast is gradually growing. And the funny part is that we don't even have a virality button. A virality, is it virality? Yeah, the virality button, where, as you know, even on YouTube you have to post, and there's that virality mode where you can post and anything just goes viral and they start to share. But when it's audio, it's difficult to have that viral effect because it's just audio, it's not video. But besides that, we are still able to have an impact in a huge number of the youth within South Africa and outside of South Africa, and I think that's a blessing on its own. And I'm looking forward towards having a bigger and greater impact to the people within and outside of our country. Let's meet tomorrow. Let's meet later on, rather. Let's meet later on another episode of Backroomconvo. I'm your host with the most, Lesego M, Daddy Waddy Pod, aka Shoot Your Shot, and maybe you might get a chance to call me Daddy like Cairo. Let's meet later on. Cheers.